Okay, it's time for your next 5-minute philosophy video. So this is a preview of a selection called Knowledge and Its Starting Points. This is written by Aristotle from an essay on posterior analytics. It comes from a larger volume. Aristotle was a writer. Fortunately, you're only going to have to read about 3 pages today, really about 2.5. Okay, so let's review a little bit of context for Aristotle. So remember that Aristotle was a student of Plato's, and like every good student, Aristotle questioned Plato on just about everything. He thought that Plato had most things backwards. More on that in a second. But that means we got to go back and think about Plato a little bit. So Plato thought that all knowledge was recollection and that knowledge of the forms preceded experience. So knowing that and knowing that Aristotle is going to challenge Plato on just about everything, can you guess what Aristotle might think about knowledge and about Plato's idea of the forms? Well, in the posterior analytics, which is from a work called Organon, he's going to talk about demonstration, what he calls demonstration of knowledge, definition, and scientific knowledge. And, he's not real happy with what Plato has said about knowledge because he believes it unnecessarily and wrongly downgrades the role of sensory data or sensory information as a source of knowledge. So if we look at these two charts here on the bottom, what Plato says is on the left. The idea or form exists, and we recognize it in all of our various sensory experiences. But it's because we have this idea or this knowledge that we are able to recognize the shadows of it in our sensory experiences. Plato is happy with his solution. Socrates says, I'm pretty happy with this. I think I'm right. But Aristotle is not convinced. Aristotle thinks that his teacher has it backwards and upside down. He says the idea comes second. It was not that the idea was there first. He says, Plato's got it backwards. You had a bunch of sensory experiences. From that collection of experiences, you've used your thinking power to synthesize those experiences into a coherent idea. So Aristotle thinks that Plato has got it fundamentally wrong and fundamentally backwards. All right, so today you're going to read about his views on knowledge, and you're going to learn that he's responsible for all those nasty syllogism tests that you've been taking. That's what demonstrative knowledge is. It's the conclusion that is proved. It's that bulletproof, tight logic of a syllogism, right? So as you're reading, be sure that you can clearly articulate what demonstrative knowledge is. Some of you I know have been having this conversation with people, and I want you to be able to explain why it's not enough for a syllogism to just be valid, right? Because that's where Aristotle's going to move next. His first task is to show that a syllogism works. But then remember the big problem, once the syllogism works, we're not done with the work. Once the syllogism works, we've got to prove that the premises are worth accepting, that they are true if we want to make our argument sound. So Aristotle is going to suggest that the starting points, these premises that he's going to then plug into his syllogisms must be self-evidently true. What does he mean by that? As you're reading, pay attention to that. What is nous? And why does Aristotle see nous as a replacement for Plato's innate knowledge? He's going to challenge Plato on innate knowledge and say, no, it's this thing called nous. All right, when you have read and you get an idea of what Aristotle is arguing here, I want you to think about it. What do you think about it? Is nous a legitimate starting point for knowledge? Do you think that Aristotle has a better epistemological framework than Plato? Do you like his ideas about where knowledge comes from as opposed to Plato's ideas about where knowledge comes from? Where do you see room for improvement in Aristotle's ideas? And then we'll wrap up with some contemplation questions. Do you think of yourself as more of a Platonic thinker or an Aristotelian thinker? Why? Do you think of yourself as a rationalist or an empiricist? Think back to that dualism of tender-minded and tough-minded. How will Aristotle's ideas about knowledge impact his ideas about other topics? Make a prediction here. What do you think Aristotle's going to say about metaphysics? What do you think Aristotle's going to say about morality? And finally, if you see Plato and Aristotle as deeply contrasted, right, as kind of opposites, does it have to be that way? Do they necessarily refute each other? Or is there some sort of middle way here? Is there some sort of synthesis of these two ideas? Okay, so good luck reading Aristotle, and we will debrief in class.